All right, everyone. Well, thank you for joining us for our next edition of the Franchise Your Business webinar series. And I am pleased to have as our guest Dan O'Connell with Premier Retail Support. And Dan and I had a nice chance to meet over at the International Franchise Convention here back in Las Vegas just a couple months ago, or coming up on a couple months now it's been. And when we met, he had his program and what they're doing at their organization seems very easy to use and really, really, really effective in helping franchisors and franchisees find and identify the right location for location-based franchises. And so with that, I'd love, Dan, to turn things over to you just to do a little intro and give us a little background on you and Premier Retail Support.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Well, I've been in commercial real estate for over 30 years. I've worked for Sunglass Hut. I was with the director of franchise development over at GNC, General Nutrition, for over 10 years. Then I moved on to Family Dollar, Dollar Tree for 17 years. And for the last 4.5 years, I was the director of real estate for United Franchise Group that you may be familiar with. And they have 1,600 franchisees in under 10 brands in 80 countries around the world. And so I've supported franchisees throughout my whole career. And what I have found is that it's not really a level playing field between the established franchisors that have a full in-house real estate department and the mom and pops, emerging brands, entrepreneurs that are going out to look for a location. Premier Retail Support, I'm not a brokerage company. I'm not looking for tenant representation. What we did is that myself and my partners, we built a website, a virtual real estate department to teach the entire site selection process. How do you analyze trade areas? How do you, what characteristics go into a good location? All the way through what goes into a letter of intent, a lease negotiation, what are construction variables? What's the difference between a vanilla shell and a gray shell? All the way through to your grand opening. And then we also have, for the more established franchisees, timing of renewal. When do you do an option? How do you negotiate an option? What is norm? How do you get an exclusive? All the variables that an in-house real estate department would provide to their franchisees, we have built a website to explain all those variables so that those entrepreneurs that are signing a lease for 5 to 10 years, they'll have the same access to all the nuances and all the strategies of lease negotiation. And that's what Premier Retail Support is, Tom. And you're on mute, my good friend. There you go.
Yep. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you, Dan. And thanks for that overview. And, in a conversation we had here recently, you talked, I think there were 6 steps or 6 things to be thinking about or talking about. And I'd love for you to talk through that, because that really stood out to me. It was really, really helpful, the level of detail you were able to go in with that.
Okay. Actually, the 6 variables that you just referenced, Tom, we've all heard the expression location, location, location. And I like to say that that's a misnomer, because it really should be location times 6, because there are 6 major variables that contribute to an ideal site selection. And first, I'll give you the list of all 6 of them. And then if you want, I'll take the time to define each one of them. The first one is square footage. The second one is demographics. The third one is visibility. The fourth one is accessibility. The fifth one is parking. And the 6th one is economics. Anybody that is going out looking for a site has to consider those 6 primary variables. And now, if you want, I'll take the time to break down each one of them, because I think that anybody that is listening to this webinar would benefit from that. Number 1, okay?
Yeah, no, that's great. Yes, okay. Please.
Square footage. Every use, whether it was the GNC that was looking for somewhere around 1,500 feet, or my Family Dollars who were looking for 8 to 10,000 feet, or the United Franchise Group, the Great Greek Mediterranean Grill, that was looking for 2,000 feet. Every use has its ideal square footage. And one of the things that I've seen through the years is franchisees, especially the small ones, they will find a perfect location and they'll go, oh, I was looking for 2,000 feet, but this site is 2,800, but it's perfect. And I use the expression, Tom, that if you find the perfect location and say, I found the perfect location, except whatever follows that word except is going to be one of the variables that could contribute to your downfall. I found the perfect 2,000 square foot space, except it's 2,800 feet. And now you're building out a space that's too big. You're investing money into CAM, tax, insurance, and base rent for a space that's larger than you need. And so that first variable, square footage, stick to your guns and maintain whatever number you need in square footage. That's what you should lease. Demographics. Everybody has seen a restaurant open in their community, and you drive down the street and the grand opening sign is, and maybe it's a white tablecloth kind of presentation, and you look at it and you go, they're never going to be successful there. Why? Well, because it's white tablecloth. The income in that area is too low for that kind of a profile. And so, and the exact opposite is also true. That the demographics, for example, when I was with Family Dollar, they would end up targeting and locating locations that would, quote, stretch the family's dollar. And so you wouldn't find a Family Dollar or a Dollar Tree or a Dollar General in a real upscale neighborhood, because the more money the people had, disposable income, they didn't need to stretch their dollar. They had a good income. So every business wants to match their demographics to the profile of their ideal customer. Visibility. I can't tell you how many times I have seen a business open, and then all of a sudden the trees start putting the leaves on, and all of a sudden you can't see their sign. And so for 6 months out of the year, they're hidden. If you can't find a location on a commercial corridor that is not hidden behind trees, it's just going to impact your visibility. And so I say pass on that location. Accessibility, number 4. I can't tell you how many times we have seen a site where you go to pull into the parking lot, and maybe it's right in, right out. It's not full access. You can't get into the parking lot. You have to go all the way around the shopping center to be able to get to park in front. And if that's a pain in the neck for you to do it, it's going to be a pain in the neck for your customers to do it, and they're going to end up not wanting to bother. So if you can't have a really accessible park in front of your location kind of location, just pass on it and move to the next one. 5th one is parking. I love the parking example because I think that was the number one variable that would impact our restaurants at United Franchise Group. And it was also, if we had permitted them to move forward with that marginal location, it was one of the variables that were going to be their downfall. And here's the example. If you have a restaurant that has, let's say, 40 seats in their dining room, you assume that 2 people are going to come in a car. So therefore, you need parking for 20 cars for your 20 customers. And if you have 6 employees and you're not sharing, it's a freestanding building in my example, well, then now you need parking for 26. I can't tell you how many of our franchisees would end up finding a perfect location, great visibility, great demographics, the right size, etc. And there was 9 parking spaces, Tom. And you sit back and you go, you will never be able to maximize your lunch and dinner crowd with such a limited parking. And so we would educate them and tell them to pass on that location. It's not the right site. And then last was economics. Every use has a formula that will end up allowing you to back into how many sales you have to do, And if you want me to take a moment to explain the exact economics, I'd be happy to.
Yes, please.
Okay. For example, if you're a restaurant and you're going to end up having, I'll say 2,000 square feet, and you're paying $30 a foot in base rent, and you're going to end up having $10 in CAM tax insurance, that means you're paying $40 a foot times 2,000 feet, which is $80,000 a year. A restaurant has an ideal occupancy of 8%. So therefore, if you take the $80,000 in occupancy divided by 0.08, you have to do $1 million in sales to be able to afford an $80,000 rent structure. I'm not including I'm not including utilities. And so that $1 million can be broken down even further. And that is, we'll assume that you're going to be open 360 days a year. Why? Because the math works well for me. You're going to be closed Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving, things like that. So if you have $1 million divided by 360 days, that means you have to generate $2,777 sales per day. And if you're, let's say, running a sub shop, so your sub chips and drink were $10, you have to do 277 sandwich combos every day to generate the $1 million in sales. And that's one of the things that a small entrepreneur may not take the time to analyze it. But a big franchisor, they will end up sharing all that information. And that's one of the reasons why we built Premier Retail Support, is because we wanted to share these formulas, if you will. They're not tricks, they're just formulas. I was sharing in a conversation with somebody recently, and I expressed, as I think I may have even shared with you in the past, that there's an expression in commercial real estate called the AM or the PM side of the highway. AM side is the going to work side. The PM side is the going home side. I had my little epiphany probably half a dozen years ago. I live in Pittsburgh, and there's a very heavily traveled commercial corridor called Banksville Road. And Banksville Road is a divided highway, and there is the AM side heading in, PM side and going home. And on the PM side, a brand new coffee shop selling donuts and bagels, things like that, was open. Grand opening sign over their door. I'm riding with my daughter, and I turned to her and I said, "You see that coffee shop that just opened with the grand opening?" And she said, "Yeah." I go, "It'll be out of business in 6 months." And she goes, "Why, Dad?" And I go, "Honey," I said, "it's on the PM side of the highway." I said, "Nobody's going to turn left." I said, "It's 8:30 in the morning." I said, "There's nobody in that drive-through." I said, "The place should be," they're just on the wrong side of the road. And these are not tricks. Here's another little stat to that if you go into a food court in a regional mall, typically is right off major parking lot. Do you know that 70% of the people that walk in will turn to their right? It's just a detail. I said, go to think about the next food court you walk in. You know where the Sbarro's is? It's on the right. The Noodles and Company, it's on the right. All the national chains are going to be on the right. Who's on the left? Those are all of the mom and pops. They didn't realize that 70% of the people turn to the right. And so it's like I said, it's not a trick. It's just something that a full in-house real estate department will share all these variables with their franchisees. And I know you know, Tom, that the franchisors, especially with the established brands, in their FDDs, they will end up having the right to approve the location. Why? Because the franchisees, 90% of the time, are the ones that are going to sign the lease, and they want to make sure that the franchisees don't pick a marginal location. They want to maximize their royalties. They want to maximize their advertising contribution. And so by helping the franchisee to choose the correct location to maximize the sales is what the big guys do for the big guys. But who's doing it for the little guys? Who's doing it for the guy that has a fabulous chicken recipe and does a fabulous chicken sandwich, and now he's got to open his second or third location, and he's got to weigh all those different variables. Where does he go for all that information until he gets to the point where he can afford to hire a VP of real estate?
Yeah, well, and this is a great segue. Where can he go? So let's talk about how Premier Retail Support helps in those areas and if in that exact situation there.
Be happy to, Tom. What we have done is we have taken the entire site selection process and broken it down chronologically. What's the first step you do in analyzing demographics? Because you don't get in the car and just drive over, in my neighborhood, drive over to Washington Boulevard, Route 19, and end up starting just driving down the street looking for sites. First, you have to mirror your trade area with the demographics of your ideal customer. And once you do that, you're going to end up then looking for individual sites. And if you're in an upscale neighborhood, you may end up having, let's say, a Whole Foods as an anchor. Well, across the street, you may have an Aldi. The Aldi is going to bring in a different customer base than the Whole Foods is. And so the Premier Retail Support website takes every variable from demographics, site selection, what goes into a letter of intent, and we broke it down chronologically from you have your brand new business you want to open and all the way through to your grand opening. And it's an annual membership, Tom. And people have said, well, why wouldn't you have it a monthly membership, Dan? Because the process of analyzing the demographics, the trade areas, going to see the sites, generating a letter of intent, executing a lease, negotiating the lease, getting plans prepared, and then building your location is going to take you somewhere between 10 months to a year. And so we cover every one of those variables within the website. And if you say, well, I've already reached the point of having a letter of intent, then on our website, you could go right to that point and pick up and have the benefit of knowledge of everything from that point on. Okay. And that 10 months to a year timeline I just built, that's explained in detail on the website. And it's and you can visit the website 24/7. So that's an overview of the website and
yeah,
and all the information that we provide on it.
Well, thank you. And what's the best way, Dan, if someone's interested in either learning more or maybe they just say, I'm ready to sign up and try this out and see how it can help me. What's the next step for someone to take?
If you visit www.premierretailsupport.com, not only can you see a lot of the information that's on the website before you join, but if you say, yes, I've got enough information, I've got enough exposure listening to this presentation, yes, I'd like to be a part of Premier Retail Support. On the website in the upper right-hand corner, there's a Join Now button. And when you click on that, you are one of two groups. You are either a subscriber, which means you're that franchisor, franchisee, or entrepreneur, or you're an industry support professional. And if you're an industry support professional, there's a form you would fill out. And that means that you want to be available and provide your services to the subscribers, to the franchisees. And so that's the easiest and fastest way for them to sign up. In addition, Tom, every page has a contact tab. And if they dial the number 412-841-6626, I'm the one that's going to answer the phone. It will not roll to voicemail. It will not, you don't get a menu. There's not a menu to choose. If you call me, it'll just be, hi, Dan O'Connell with Premier Retail Support. How can I help you?
Great. Well, Dan, I love everything you've shared here. This has been excellent. And I just ask, is there anything you're maybe hoping to share or communicate that you haven't had a chance to get across yet? This has been very succinct and to the point.
Yeah. The first thing that just popped into my mind was, of those 6 variables that I said in the beginning, square footage, demographics, visibility, accessibility, parking, and economics. If you find yourself saying, I found the great location, except, turn down the location. Do not commit to a location that has that except in your own justification. That's one of the things that really does separate the corporate world from franchisees' emotions, is that corporate has no problem passing on a location. That's the beauty of commercial real estate. There's always another location.
Great. Well, that's great closing advice. Dan, I really appreciate you being here and being a guest on our webinar today. Thank you so much. And to those of you, and to our audience and those of you tuning in, if you're looking for this great content, this will be published as a rebroadcast on our website, bigskyfranchiseteam.com, on our YouTube channel, and it will be made available on our podcast channel called Franchise Your Business. And if you have not subscribed to our marquee podcast called Multiply Your Success, please make sure you do so. I really appreciate all of your time, Dan, and to our guests for being here. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.